on a Wednesday. We missed yesterday mainly because I was tired and doing other things. And let me tell you, your boy needed a break. Now, why did your boy need a break? Because I have managed to get not eight. I've managed to get two, count them two, high end doctors eaten by a damn worm called Growler. So I am pretty pissed off at Growler right now. He just ate my doctor and left me buck ass naked out in the middle of nowhere. Now, the good thing is, when I decide to get back on, since I'm so far away from my house, I will get on the line with my brother and tell him to come pick my ass up in Haga Basin and ride me home. Give me a ride home in his stopper. I'll be like, look, if your internet's working, this is what has to happen, because running all the way from the starting zone to my new zone, I don't intend to rebuild a house and all that kind of crap so that I can get across the desert, right? Maybe I should. I don't know. Maybe I should, but I'd rather not, right? And that means I need to get him to give me a ride in his stopper, pick me up, drop me off. You know what I'm saying? And oh my god. I only ever get ate by the worms because I get selfish. I get greedy. And I'm getting like a lot of good treasure and stuff. And it's always when I'm rampaging through crashed starships. And it's like I see the jaggly line turning red, meaning a worm is on the way. And I always think I've got more time than I've got. And then I pay for it. And it's like I can't even be mad because I'm the one that made the decision to run back to the back of the starship and try to use my cutter ray to bust into the cargo hold. So, I mean, can't even be too mad about it. You know what I mean? It's just like, ugh. But there goes all of my top end gear. Oh man, and I had Fade Rotha's freaking I had the poison blade that Fade had given me too. I guess that's gone. And that's a one-time item. I mean, you only get that one time. It's not like you ever get blueprint to make more. So I lost a lot of stuff, guys. A lot of stuff. Gone, gone, gone. Yeah. It's just gone, baby, gone. My knife is gone. Gone, baby, gone. My tier 6 armor is gone. Gone, baby, gone. It's gone so far away. But the good news is, like I said, I can get my brother to fly his ornithopter down to the starting base, which is where I'm hanging out, and pick my butt up and drag my ass back up to Pinnacle Base, which is where we both live. So I just got to get in touch with him and be like, look, bro, I mean, you're in my guild. We're in the same guild over here. So I need the hookups. You know what I mean? Now's your chance to prove your loyalty to the guild and house and blah, 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 blah. And that means please pick me up and give me a ride home because, right now things are sucking super hard and I just don't even know. So you're looking at one of my bluer starships. I'm working on some more white ones for the fleet, just so that they're not all exactly the same, except for the Skaven ships. They're all going to be exactly the same. And of course, this battleship for Battlefleet Gothic, I decided to do a lot of the decoration on that in like a dark red, just to make it look kind of grim, since that is kind of the whole point of it. Now I'll lift this up. Let me change the camera real quick so you can actually see. I've got this sci-fi building. The top pops off so that if you wanted to, I guess you could put a floor in here and then actually like decorate the interior or something if you wanted to. I don't know. The antenna comes off probably for storage, but and it's made out of pieces so that it's that Dragonlock stuff, so you could take it apart. I mean, it could be taken apart. I guess if you wanted to, like, I don't know, extend it, the old extender. In the last Doom game, I talked about there'd already been a attack on the harvester of the smuggler that works with the family, and that caused quite a bit of consternation. I don't think my players realized how dangerous Arrakis could be, especially now they're like, okay, we got attacked by the bandits, but they're gonna have to try to figure out why the bandits went out of their way to attack their ornithopters and whatever. That'll be to them though. See, I cannot and will not get involved in all that because that would just not be good DMing, I don't think. So yeah. And so we had a big combat on a pile of rocks. Those rocks that I've been painting that I showed you, they had a combat all over and around it, throughout those rocky areas, and it was a thing. It was a thing. Some people died, some people lived. That's how it goes when you're dealing in, combat situations like that. So, since it turned out after they did further exploration of Sietch Hole in the Rock, that the Sietch is currently not inhabitable and maybe never will be, or at least not without a lot of work, because the inner depths of the Sietch are just full of skeletons. Dead Fremen. And they being, the players that they are, they're like, hey, can we find any crysknives? And it's like, no. They're like, well, why not? And it's like, because crysknives, if not kept close to a human body, and, you know, oiled and taken care of and stuff, they get really brittle and they just crumble basically to dust. So, no, they're not like, oh, I found this metal knife over here. It's not like that at all. So, a lot of these buildings, I'm just going to do concrete. I could just do them black, but that would be whatever. But anyway, back to. So let's move this guy. This is the battleship model that just has shit tons of lances on it. So very straightforward battleship. It's got a shit ton of heavy weapons. Imperial battleship, yeah, it's just got a ton of heavy weapons, and its whole job is just to, you know, get within range and start throwing handfuls of dice at your opponent. It's also got like a spinal mount neutron blaster or whatever on the front of it. So good stuff, I think. Good stuff. The only negative with these old ships is the guns. You can see them on that miniature. They're just not very detailed, and you know, I can 3D print much better guns, but I don't want to wreck these guys. I was looking online. The prices for these things are all over the place. I mean, it's truly like, really, dude? It's like one guy was selling a box of Sathar and he's selling like the whole box with all 6 of the ships in it was $20. And then another guy has the exact same box with 6 ship in it, but he wants like $200. And it's just like, you know, what's going on here? You know, I read the descriptions. Not that I need any more Sather ships. I definitely do not need any more Star Frontier ships at all. None. I mean, they're boxed up right now, and I'm not messing with them, but I have tons of 3D printed Star Frontier ships, but not just Star Frontiers. You know, multiple other makes. Pretty much anything that looks like it might go with the Star Frontier ships ends up, you know. So, you know. Oh, and I was really lucky the other day. I found out like those one ships that I was like, I'm not 100% sure what these even are for, right? It turns out that TSR, you know, back when they're selling, you know, starships for Star Frontiers, they had a box set for pirates. And that's what those ships are. They're pirate ships. So, you know. Now, I don't know why they never put out ships for any of the UPF races. Maybe the Rusk, Drousite, etc. Maybe they just never developed, you know, their own designs, or if they did, they just said, screw it, we're just using, you know, this design because, I mean, perhaps the UPF designs were all agreed upon, you know, by the Federation. And they're not just, you know, Earth or human ships, you know. So, yeah. But see, the thing I'm putting some silver paint on right now, and it probably will need a wash when it's dry, just to darken it down even better, and then it'll it'll need a highlight, I think. I went with silver just because this thing, big metallic thing floating through space, right? I need to make the screen back to where it was. Let's move this big chunky boy and put this down. Let's get this back to where it was. Boom. There we go. And then let's see if we can get this to focus in. See, it wants to. It's like, I really would like to, but you got so much going on behind it that I'm like, I don't know what to focus on. Maybe. There we go. So this is just a standard, could be used for Traveler, could be used for Star Frontiers, could actually be used for just about any sci-fi game, war game or otherwise, So we got that there. That's good. So I'm in here hiding because my wife has like 20 meetings in a row. I don't want to be involved in any of that, yeah. Not that I'm involved, but sitting in there. Plus, like I said, I'm taking a break from Doom for a little bit. Sometimes when shit happens, you just gotta walk away for a little bit. Just walk away. So we've got our heavy cruiser here. I'm gonna go ahead and again, I am painting these heavy cruisers, these battleships with Holy White, which is a Vallejo Express paint. And, like all white contrast paints, it's basically just a really light gray, that's designed to get into all the little crevices and cracks to give you the appearance of shade. Now, if you really want to be crazy with it, you can do some panel painting when you're done. Go back with a relatively fine brush and some titanium white or something and just really pick out, some specific panels. But I mean, that's only if, right. You really, 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 really want, to do your thing. These guys here, they're mostly, just floating tubes, really, with engines stuck on the back and big shielding thing between the engines and the body of the ship. So, I mean, the good thing about doing this is that if if your expectations are pretty low, once you put the couple of speed paint washes on this guy that you're going to put on, like the Holy White for the main body, you're going to probably want to put on some platinum or some metallic for, the engines. You can do the engines in red too. That's a kind of a good look. I've seen it done that way. But regardless, I mean, you could have one of these definitely table ready super fast, right? And I think that's a learned habit, though. Like for me, the whole, I forget who it was that said the hardest part about being an artist is knowing when to quit. And yeah, because you see that with a lot of miniatures painters. they just don't know when to stop. I mean, they're just constantly putting more and more and more on. And the problem is, it's not hard to get to a point where you've put so much on that now the ship just doesn't look right. I mean? So this guy right here, we'll put him on top of the roof of a house. Put our heavy cruiser. The Fat Dragon Games, I believe it is. I'd have to double check, guys. They actually do all of this the Star Frontier ships in STL. And not only that, but they add some ships that were mentioned in the rules, but for whatever reason were never made. So there is a UPF light cruiser. There is a Sathar destroyer. I think it's a destroyer because it's either a destroyer or a frigate. Because the Sathar have a ton of one and none of the other. So somebody designed ships that would fit into that category, and they don't look any different, really. And by really, I mean they don't look any different. There's a Sathar mine layer. There's a Sathar assault ship, which they made pictures of, but they never actually buckled down and made the thing. So now, if the main color of these guys, right, is going to be this holy white, so they're going to be white, right? That means I'm going to have to do a lot of detail work on these bad boys, and I don't mean actual getting a small brush, painting in portholes detail work. I just mean color contrasts. So we already know the engine nacelles will probably be metallic. Then the weapons will probably be metallic, but the hab units, which spin around, I don't know. Maybe we'll make them a different color, And then we got the bridge and everything like that to deal with too. So, and I've got a little box over here of other starships I could be working on. These are all Star Frontier starships. But I've also got, 3D printed ships, and like this guy right here. It's about the size of a light cruiser or maybe a destroyer or something. It's in that range, which means, easy to build, whatever. But I'm not necessarily super happy with the dinginess of it, right? So I am going to grab myself some blade steel. That's a Reaper paint. No blade steel, right? Throw it down on the table on my palette as it is, and I'm going to do a little dry brushing on this bad boy because I want to keep some of the depth that the wash gave this thing, but at the same time, I want to pick out, highlights, weapon systems, whatever, right? Now, this thing's got the engines at the back, kind of like a Federation destroyer, which means there's a whole area on the inside where there's a big, barrier wall, radiation wall, whatever. one thing this thing has is if I were designing this using Nighthawk rules, it would definitely have some kind of big ass, the biggest weapon that a ship of this size could have, pointed right out of the front of it. Because, that's just the way this thing was built, right? It has some kind of big spinal mount built right out of the front. And you have to remember, guys, that these starships they are not set up in the Star Wars way or the Star Trek way or the most, sci-fi way. They are set up in the Expanse way, which is the realistic way. So this thing looks like it's got a couple of guns on pylons out away from the body. And then it's got a whole crew area in the middle. Then it's got a engineering section, which is probably, heavily shielded. And then it's got the bridge area. And true to a lot of ships in like, sci-fi by like Isaac Asimov and stuff, and Traveler too, it has just a gigantic gun, right? It's mounted down the entire length of the ship. So maybe I'll give it like a Messin gun, something like that. Something that if it hits you, you need to make some rolls, or your ship catches on fire, because that's no fun for anybody, right? I mean, one thing I will say about this game, mostly, and I think this is true of all the good sci-fi starship battle games, Nighthawks acts like you're not in space, but more like you're in water. It's like, and 2300's the same way. Starship battles are more reflected by modern day submarine battles. And I think that's probably realistic, the idea of, whipping around. Like fighters are typically used either as a weapon delivery system. So the fighter flies in, drops a missile or something off, and then hauls ass back home, mainly because they can't carry very many weapons, right? And they have to account for the same forces as every other ship. So you're not in this game, you're not going to have fighters like pulling, split S's on each other and whatever, because with a little bit of thrust and everything, the fighter can change its entire direction, just boom, right? So yeah, it's not space opera. That's one of the wild things about Star Frontiers is the designer of Star Frontiers, for whatever reason, I don't know why, because I don't even know who he is, honestly. I should look into that. But for whatever reason, he decided, unlike the Buck Rogers game and other games, Traveler, to make gravity in space reflect our current known understandings of gravity. So all the alien races that you might encounter, none of them have artificial gravity. It is a science that has not ever been created. And it's mainly because whoever made the game went with the actual theory that, creating gravity is just not possible. We don't have the power, etc., to actually do that, you know. Not to mention how it might affect space-time in the, you know, specific area that you're trying to do this, right? So yeah, you don't see a lot of um, you don't see any actually ships with artificial gravity. Now, Traveler touched on this in one of their adventures where you find an old starship and you got to go on it, and it's like it turns out that it looks like the Enterprise really, and the nacelles or whatever they're called are actually detachable. So they're more like little ships, but you know, if you detach them all or attach them all into the main body, that's how it propels itself, right? And all the decks are stacked like they should be. And if you don't get off the ship in enough time or figure it out, it will randomly jump you somewhere far away. And then, you know, there you'll be far, far away from wherever you were. And that might not be, you know, a good time for anybody, right? So let's see. So I've got some kind of cool ships here. They're all in the, you know, maybe even light cruiser uh, size. Like this guy right here is a heavy merchant ship. But I mean, it could be used for a multitude of other things too, you know. I guess if you put weapons on it, this could be a warship too, but I don't know why you would want to, right? And it's got the engines out away from the crew compartment. And of course, the round part in front's probably the bridge. And it might actually be able to land on a planet. This guy. If it's got the right, you know, supports and stuff, it might actually land like the Rocinante. You know, but this one is very similar to the last one, except smaller. But it's the same basic build. So, you know, if you're into keeping track of like, this ship was made by, you know, the so and so company. This is a weird ship. This is a weird ship to deal with because it's basically, come on, focus in, focus. It's basically a flying mini carrier. Those three things around along the spine of the ship, those are fighters, heavy fighters, you would say, almost the size of a scout. Not quite, but almost. So, I mean, that guy right there, right? That's kind of a wild kind of ship because it would pop into you know, pop into a place and immediately, you know, if it felt the need, drop the three fighters off to go out and, you know, look around. And those are heavy fighters, so they could be equipped with like, I don't know, bombing stuff, whatever, you know. So that's a wild ship, you know. It's just a transport ship with three heavy fighters mounted to it. So the heavy fighters probably are not jump capable. I would, I would go out on a limb and say, yeah, the heavy fighters are not jump capable. They're probably just armed to the teeth, whether it's with bombs, drones, missiles, whatever. So they represent the actual offensive arm of that ship. The ship warps into a system and it immediately launches those heavy fighters, which, go on to wreak havoc on enemy forces, possibly, and or die. And either way, if the main carrier needs to, jettison itself out of, the region, it can do it. It can just yeet itself right out of Dodge and be like, no, we're not doing this thing over here because, it's a guaranteed death sentence. So, See, for those of you who don't know, in Star Frontiers, Fukushima, whatever effect, Fujiyama, it's a Japanese guy's name and then an English guy's name, right? They realize there's this effect where the faster you get towards light speed, there's an actual physics effect, they say, that can cause the ship to actually begin to go faster than light. So it's like a weird thing. It's like if you want to go to a star system, you got to put all the proper whatevers in, and then you begin accelerating away from the world. And when you're out of range of any gravity fields or anything like that, then, and you hit like 1/10 the speed of light, your ship will enter a secondary like phase where it will literally begin going faster than light. And there is a science behind it in the game anyway. I doubt it, would agree with anything we know about modern science. But that's how they came up with it. So a lot of ships don't have what we would necessarily refer to as jump drives. Really, it's just a matter of, can you go fast enough to trigger the effect? And there may be a machine on the ship that actually helps with the getting you there, but really it's just these big nuclear powered engines, shooting out tons of energy to get you, to the right speed to actually, start making the transition between planets. And then if you've ever seen the Frontier map, I mean, things are pretty close. There's one map that's got like little checks on it where if you're playing fleet battles, you can move like fleets along jump corridors. And, so fleet can show up at a planet long after the enemy have already, completely wrecked the planet, which that is the Traveler game was like that too. You send fleets out and just hope that, you guessed where the enemy fleets would be. Otherwise, the only thing doing most of the fighting would be your planetary defense forces, which typically weren't that great. I mean, they weren't terrible, but I like that little ship with the big gun in the front. It makes sense to me. You know, that is a warship. You know, the whole ship is, it's basically like they took this gigantic space weapon and they were like, cool, this is a great gigantic space weapon. And then they're all like, you know what we should do, right? We should build a ship around it. And that way it could go out into space and get involved in shit. And then somebody was like, yeah, that's a great idea. Let's do that. You know what I mean? And then you're like, what? And then it's like, yeah, man, you know, the scientist is like, Let, let's take this big ass gun that will, you know, just melt shit, and we will design the starship around the gun. And yeah, I dig that. I dig that a lot. Big fan. Big fan. Balloon. My brother is driving around. Oh, he's heading to Kentucky today. Yeah, he's heading to Kentucky today. Which means he's going to have that crappy internet up on the mountain. I mean, better than nothing, but you know. So now what I need to do, got a couple things I need to do real quick. I think this is the thing I need to look at. More battleships. One is not nearly done. The other one is, it's got ordnance and it's got a shit ton of hangars. So that battleship is way closer to a carrier than what I would consider a battleship. But what it does have in here is extra guns, because whenever I print battleships out, whether they're Battlefleet Gothic or any other, you know, whatever, I always print out extra, you know, Lance batteries and stuff like that, because one, they're great for, you know, doing mods on ships, you know, and two, that's basically it. They're great for doing mods on ships. So, you know, printing out a ton of them is a good idea if you're, you know, if you're going to print out a ship anyway, you might as well fill the rest of the build space with, you know, guns and little greebles that you can later, you know, maybe attach to some other ship. And, you know, just to make it look a little better or something, you know. So I still haven't repaired. Yeah, I still haven't repaired my 3D printer. I am being so lazy when it comes to that. It's like, I don't know what I'm thinking. You know, it's just like, oh man. I mean, I'm going to have to take all the resin out of it, clean it up really good, probably clear this area off here, bring it in here, and just completely disassemble, which is not going to be good times, you know. No easy credit layoffs and all that is going to be bad times. It's going to be like, Damn, Easy credit, rip-offs, good times. Ain't we lucky we got 'em? Good times. Yeah, some of you guys know that song. Hump Day. So my brother can't join. That makes me sad. Later, I'll do a video about my trials and tribulations of trying to get back home from the complete opposite side of the desert and me running around in a loincloth.
Well, that's never been my leadership style.
Oh, my wife's in there talking about her leadership style. Dr. Steve Turley talking about Cracker Barrel. Well, there is a part of the Bible where it says that you should never place a woman in a position of authority. And I don't know how that works out, but it does seem that every time they put one of these college educated, got a degree in gender studies or freaking communications or some other stupid degree that really doesn't mean anything. These things happen. And eventually, I mean, you would think somebody would be like, what's going on here? Because you've hired a woman that absolutely hates Americana and masculine things, and you're putting her in charge of the things that she hates. It is literally, I mean, it makes no sense, does it? I mean, like, really, you're gonna do that? But it's what they do. I mean, they hired that one lady for Bud Light that absolutely hated Bud Light, and put her in charge of marketing. And now they've hired this other woman, and they might as well be the same woman. Typical leftist female, probably very rich. This is not a woman who's worrying about paying bills or how to make 2 pounds of hamburger stretch to feed all the kids or anything, if she even has any. This is a very wealthy woman, and yet she doesn't have the common sense to, when she gets a job, to embrace whatever her position is at the company and just do the damn job. You would think, I mean, honestly, guys, you would think this would be easy, right? But they hire these university educated liberals and they F everything up.
What? All I heard was she doesn't have the common sense to do the job. And I'm like, wait, is he talking about me? And then I realized you weren't. So I'm wondering.
Why would you think I'd ever even talk about you like that?
Well, that's why I came over and I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah, but I'm a little offended that somewhere in your brain you thought I would talk
I'm the most
about.
important she in your life.
Exactly. You're just arguing my point. There's no situation where I'd be like, yeah, my wife's an idiot. I mean, you're smart enough to marry me. So, anyway, it's like you would think these companies would have rules like if the woman who is applying is in her mid 40s, has no kids, you know, got a degree in something stupid. Because, I mean, what is a communications degree? It's not like they're training you to use actual communications equipment. The whole degree is supposedly they're training you to talk to people, right? Well, I mean, that's a stupid degree because it's like either you have the charisma to talk to people or you don't. And no amount of repeating back what some liberal professor tells you to say is going to all of a sudden make you this great communicator, you know? And so it's like, yeah, there's some degrees that some of these chicks bring, and they need to be avoided at all costs. I mean, if it's any kind of gender study, that needs to be freaking avoided at all costs. I did what I said I wasn't going to do, guys. This guy was already broke, and I fixed him. But I cut the gun turrets off and replaced them with 3D printed gun turrets. And they look way better. I'll give you the comparison. It's like the way they molded the old gun turrets, you can see they're just like kind of a rough thing there. Like, what the hell even is that? And then you've got, you know, actual gun turrets. They're smoother, they're closer to the ship, you know, they actually look like maybe some sort of bay weapon with 3 beamers in it, you know, las cannons or whatever. So now that ship, once I paint those gun turrets up, is going to look a lot. Plus, I'm doing a lot of red on this guy just because white and red, and then I'll do detail work. But yeah, I mean, this woman is like, it's like, really? This is the thing you're doing. That is definitely something. All right, so I think Double D will be on tonight. So that'll be cool. That will be very cool, I think. I think it's kind of hilarious that Critical Role decided to stick with D&D instead of go with their own game. That is kind of, it's kind of wild, you know? It's like you start Darrington Press, you put out a couple of crappy games, and then you immediately say, no, we're going to be using 5e. I mean, it's like, I don't want to say it, but it's like, was there a payout? I mean, what happened here? You know? Like, did Wizard of the Coast out of desperation be like, please use our system, we'll give you lots of money? I mean, I wouldn't doubt it, because it's like, you know, they're doing so terrible. I mean, Wizard of the Coast does kind of suck. So, and I stand by the only reason 5e ever got popular was because Matt Mercer and crew, you know, ran it, and the critters are crazy when it comes to that sort of thing. So, you know, they are absolutely nuts, even though none of them, I would say a very small part of them, minority of them, actually play D&D at all. I've said this multiple times, and this is something that I it's totally anecdotal. I can't prove anything, but it really seems like yeah, it really seems like that's the deal, you know. All right, so I'm thinking. That's hard for me. Do 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 do. I must have pissed all the critters off. Do 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 do. So, how do you guys feel about Asmongold telling the hard truth to people? Pretty interesting, right? Well, Asmongold telling people they're idiots. I mean, I have to admit that I like it, but hey, you know, your results may vary. But yeah, it's kind of wild watching his channel and him just like going off. It's like, all right, man, you go off, do you? You know, the world is full of people who are going to absolutely despise everything you say and try to put it, you know, in the wrong way, right? But you speak it, and you know, he's only speaking the truth, guys. He's only speaking the truth, you know. Now, what I'm waiting for is to find out if the Maryland man is going to become a Uganda man. That's hilarious to me. And while I have to admit I don't know a whole lot about Uganda, I have a feeling if he goes into the wrong parts of Uganda, they may just eat him.
Bacon.
Thank you.
You want me to put it somewhere else?
Nope, that's fine.
Okay.
You know, because cannibalism still is a thing in many parts of Africa. So, I mean, and they say that the light meat is the healthier meat to eat. So, Mr. Abrego may be in trouble. That's all I'm saying. It's not all I'm saying, but it's what I'm saying about that. It's like, dude, really? Your goal was to. I mean, there was never any way that dude was going to get to stay in America. That's the thing, you know. The lefties, commies, whatever, that like to import these people in to basically destroy the United States. That's kind of the goal, I think, is let's bring enough people in so that the United States that you see in Rockwell pictures can never, ever be, you know. And I'm not even saying that it ever was, but now we're at a point where it can never be. And yeah, it's just like I'm not a fan of that, you know. Asmongold, I think, when he says suicidal empathy, I think he's dead on, you know. And it's something that only exists and can only exist in wealthier nations, right? Where basically, mostly, again, liberal women have this weird, well, as he said, suicidal empathy. It's like they care so much for all of these other people around the world that they want to bring them here. But the problem is there are certain cultures that just do not and will not ever integrate into the great American experience. And I mean, we've already seen that with the Muslims, right? So if our government is smart, one of the first things they will do is put a limit on how many Muslims can come into this country. That's just smart. That's just, not being an idiot, right? Because, if you keep letting them in huge numbers, you will end up with areas like Dearborn, Minneapolis, or Little Mogadishu, as we call it, etc., right? And what's the most dangerous part of that is the people of those regions, they do not, for the most part, this is broad brush talking here, but they are going to be loyal to their imam, their cleric, way more than they will be to the United States. And they're going to take their laws from the Sharia way more, they're way more important to them than, anything that we say. Because of the culture, when you bring a bunch of people from Pakistan, which is one of the most inbred countries on the planet, with the most like first cousin marriages and all of that, and you bring them into, the United States, and like in their country, if a woman's walking around looking in the very, at any level, you know, appealing to the male, you know, guy, then they feel like they have the right to just do whatever they want, right? Also, their age of consent is like 10. I mean, don't believe me. Let's look at, just look at England, right? Like go on the lotus hunt, the lotus eaters, and look at what's going on in Britain. And Britain's just a few years ahead of us. So let's see if I can find someone who Hims. I'm so sick of these Hims commercials. Must be a big thing because it's nonstop, Like, oh, you got hair loss? Hims. Your wee wee not working right? Hims. It's like, dude, come on, man. So we got this here. Now we need to get it over here. We've got this over here. All right, this is a short video. Full credit to the creator of the video, Dino. So I'll credit him after we watch it, but.
Hey guys, for those that aren't aware, the bacon meme is really kicking off right now. I don't know why. I mean, for whatever reason, it could be anything, but for some reason, people are using bacon to make a profound point. Don't know what it could be.
I don't know what it could be.
If raising legitimate concerns about thousands and thousands of unchecked foreign males illegally entering our country makes me far right, then so be it.
But it all started when this young gentleman was arrested in England for singing I Love Bacon. Now you have to wonder why the UK police, who are supposed to be there for the native people, would be arresting an Englishman for singing that he loves bacon, because we are a bacon-loving country. The English breakfast is not complete without bacon. So why would the police be arresting a man for singing that? You've just got to wonder. Anyway, so the meme started off with just gestures of solidarity, using bacon to make a profound point. People are using bacon to make a profound point.
I'm doing the wrong thing here.
Don't know what it could be.
What it could be, guys. What it could
If
be.
raising
Well,
legitimate concerns.
it's a statement against Islam and Islamic food laws, because bacon, as we know, is halal, or non-kosher if you're Jewish, but if you're Muslim, it's halal. And so, no bacon, right? Even though I'm sure a lot of them eat it anyway because it's delicious, right? So then if somebody's saying they love bacon, I guess if you're a very insecure human being and you really don't, believe your religion is right, therefore, you have to try to force people into it instead of just letting them choose it, you might be offended. But here's the problem with the UK, and hey, dear UK people, I'm going to say a bunch of stuff that your government would throw you in jail for. But me, they can't throw in jail because I'm an American. So, they can kick rocks. We already handled all this shit in the 1776 type era. So yeah, kick rocks. I am, though, however, very sorry that my British brothers, I guess, are so downtrodden and don't have like basic rights, the right to meme, the right to just sing you like
Concerns about thousands and thousands of unchecked foreign males illegally entering our country makes me far right, then so be it.
I think
But
that
it all
guy's
started
name
when
was
this young
Nut.
gentleman was arrested in England for singing I Love Bacon. Now, you have to wonder why the UK police, who are supposed to be there for the native people, would be arresting an Englishman for singing that he loves bacon, because we are a bacon-loving country. The English breakfast is not complete without bacon. So why would the police be arresting a man for singing that? You've just got to wonder. Anyway, so the meme started off with just gestures of
American breakfast is better, but I have had a full English with tomatoes and beans and sausage and bacon, and I give it to the British. I mean, if nothing else in the world, their breakfast is stellar, So this guy being proud of the English breakfast, I totally get it because, yeah, we had a hotel not too far from where I live, and they got a lot of British custom, and because of that, every Saturday and Sunday they served up a full English, but it was served up like buffet style. So you could go and like just put whatever you paid, and then you could go and just put whatever you fancied on your plate. So sausages and beans, tomatoes, cooked tomato, and of course eggs. You gotta have your eggs, and then bacon, sometimes black pudding. I mean, these guys went all out on this English breakfast, and yeah, having ate it a few times, I can say it was pretty awesome. Yeah, I like
solidarity, using bacon itself as the instrument of revolution, opposition, no, as the instrument of revolt. Okay, and it moved on to just random sporadic outpours of resistance using bacon. Again, you've got to wonder why they would use bacon. More bacon related memes. Again, it was kind of scattershot. They hadn't really found their edge yet, but they kept coming. Do you have a moment to talk about bacon? He just doesn't look very interested, does he?
Stop that.
They got a little bit more creative. Shouldn't have done that bacon meme, mate. Shouldn't have done it. And then it started to shift. It started to become concentrated in what they were trying to say. And I'll get to why this is pretty special at the end, okay? But they started to zone in on exactly what they wanted to say through this meme. And it started probably with this association with flags. And then it started. Then the bacon flags were raised.
Stop that.
And they kept coming from all around the world. From Brazil, from America, from Flanders, Czechs. They were all sending their support using bacon flags. And I found it actually kind of moving, you know. And I'll tell you why again in a sec. But they kept coming. Even people from Argentina was sending their support because they recognized what's happening in the UK. They recognize how evil it is and how wrong it is, and they understand that for a long time, you've probably heard this, people who have saw our reaction to what's happening in our country as a bad thing would say something along the lines of, well, that's what you voted for, you know, or that's what you get for voting for these people, or that's what you get for not standing up for yourself, or that's what you get for not having a backbone. It's all these kinds of arguments. I think they're beginning to understand that this is being done to us. We didn't vote for this. This has been done deliberately by people that we didn't vote for, and it's been done against our will. And that's why I think you're seeing this outpouring of support and resistance around the world using, again, for some reason, they're just using bacon as like a really important core element of this message. And the reason I find it so interesting is because internationally, the UK has always been kind of shit on. People like to take the piss out of us because we have a thick skin. We don't really mind. And we are, you know, we were a good country in which people would aspire to replicate. And when you set an example to the world, you open yourself up to mockery, and that's fine. If they want to shoot up, that's fine. But I think now people are realizing that when they mock the UK, they'll be shooting down. There's no fun in shooting down. And this says it all. You know the issue is real when people start allying with the UK. Yeah.
That's
Shit's getting real,
100%
guys.
true.
Anyway, I wanted to finish on this. This has been
That's
circulating
100%
as well. Again, I don't know why.
Stop that.
I just, for the life of me, I don't know why. So this prank has been circulating quite a lot. Again, let's have a look why.
Wait, hold on.
Not bad, it's pretty good.
Hold on. This is the wrong one.
What do you mean?
This is the real bacon one. I'm supposed to use this one for Dustin.
Are you serious, Kai?
Yeah. Spit it out. There's water right there. Spit it out.
Kai, are you serious, bro?
Yeah. Oh, that's the wrong one. Hold on.
Wait a minute.
This is real bacon.
What?
This the one I'm supposed to use on Dustin. This is the real bacon. This is.
What do you mean this is the real one?
It's supposed to be for Dustin and Ashley.
Serious, dog? What the? Are you serious right now?
Yeah. Oh, to my bad. Spit it out. This is the real one. This is the real one, bruh. This is real bacon. I was supposed to give this to Dustin.
Oh shit! I'm Muslim, G. Get pork.
You know why I think he's angry? Because he liked it. Anyway, it's the meme itself is not important. It's the idea that bacon itself is being seen as a mechanism in which you can show your resistance to the state. And I think it will evolve. This is probably the first sign of it evolving into something else. Bacon will just be universally seen as a symbol of resistance. I never thought I would say that. That's the world we live in.
All right, so that was Dino Bang. Give him love. The thing with that is, I don't remember exactly from my readings in the Quran, but I believe if you're a guest in someone's home, you're supposed to eat basically whatever they serve you, because it would be very dishonorable and affect your deen if you insulted your host. But that, maybe I'm getting confused with Jewish law too, because I know in Jewish law, you're not supposed to eat non-kosher stuff. I know this all personally. Obviously, you guys know the story of, me being raised Jewish for a very long time, right? But the thing is if you're Jewish and you get invited into a household and a dinner with somebody, you are expected to eat whatever they put in front of you without complaint, because because the insulting of your host is a much bigger deal than whether or not you ate bacon. And I believe Islam is the same way. Mainly because Islam is just like a, Timu version of Judaism that, some crazy ginger come up with. I mean, I was watching this thing the other day, and this Muslim was trying to insult a African man, and he's like, "You worship a white man." And I actually got a little insulted because, one, what's wrong with worshiping a white man? And two, it showed how ignorant both parties actually are. Because the Arab, while he might have a little bit darker skin than a Scandinavian, is 100% an Indo-European. Which means he is technically Caucasian. He's white. He is white. But he's trying to talk shit to the black African about Jesus being white. And so that's the first insulting thing he did. The second insulting thing the Christian did. Because he said Jesus was a Jew and Jews are not white. And it's like, well, hate to break it to you guys, but Abraham came from Anatolia. And his people were basically the same people that you could say were the Cossacks and things like that, right? And he is a mercenary. He fought war for money. That is what he did, right? White. Sorry. Indo-European white. And the Israelites are white. Like, you can even make the argument that a lot of the Punjabi in the north of India have a tremendously high amount of Indo-European blood. That argument can be made because they were, in fact, conquered by an Indo-European empire thousands of years ago. And the people in northern India were pretty much wiped out and replaced by the wagon riders who had traveled from, some people think, probably somewhere around modern day Ukraine or Dagestan or something like that, So basically southern Russia. And they traveled all the way across the world, conquering everybody. And they made it to India, where they found the city dwellers who built their beautiful cities in these nice, square, gridded, whatever, with sewer and everything like that. And the brilliant Indo-European people who happened onto the scene did what Indo-European people do, and that is they exterminated them. They just wiped them right the hell out, and they replaced them. Now, some Indian nationalists today will argue that that's all a lie, but archaeologically speaking, no, it's not a lie. We know for a fact we can trace when the horse was introduced to the subcontinent, etc. Right? And then on top of that, we're talking about Indians. I mean, they've been conquered by like everybody. Alexander marched through India. So what do they got to say about that? It's like, I mean, because whether they want to believe it or not, or whoever wants to believe it or not, when Alexander conquered, all of these currently Arabic nations, and marched down the river in India, went through Afghanistan, etc. If you think his men were not banging prostitutes and taking wives, and maybe even, not being that nice about it, then I have a bridge in Queens to sell you, right? Because they were. And what that means is the idea that, there's no European admixture in all of these different regions is just not believable. Then, of course, Rome, which conquered pretty much everywhere, and North Africa. Why do you think Tunisians look the way they look, or Libyans? Why aren't they black-skinned like their sub-Saharan cousins? Because for thousands upon thousands of years, that region belonged to the Greeks, the Romans, the Carthaginians, who were, Canaanites, Indo-Europeans. It's so amazing to me when people want to argue about this. And so the reality is, if you're actually going by ethnic composition, you're not just making shit up, but you're, trying to talk about, okay, which group of people does this group or that group fit into, right? Well, you basically have three choices. Technically, okay, let's say you got four. Let's be generous and say you have four choices, right? The first choice is white, Caucasian. And every Caucasian is not white, but that's okay. Pale skin. Some Caucasians have darker skin. The third option for what kind of people you could be related to is Asian. And the fourth option is African. Those are the three distinct peoples that you could be related to. And everyone on the planet is related to them in some way. Like everyone is. It's kind of like how Finns were originally Asian, but then over time they bred in with the Slavs, and now I don't even know, right? The Hungarians, originally Asian, steppe dwellers, now Central Europe, North Africa, like I said, Greeks, Phoenicians, Egyptians, all of these people who, for the most part, were Indo-European. So, at some point, I guess what I'm trying to say is, when the African man tried to argue that Jesus was not white, he was wrong. Because Levantine Jews are like some of the whitest of the white Jews. You know what I mean? They might not be Ashkenazi, but they're damn close, They're definitely not Sephardic or Khazars or Galits. They Levantine Jews are white. Actually, most people would say that they look more or less Mediterranean or Greek. So yeah, so the black guy being offended because the Muslim said he worshiped a white god, it's like it's so confusing. In that, like I said, the Muslim is a white guy whose prophet is a white guy because, you know, we know Muhammad had red hair. More the reason, I guess, to not trust gingers, right? And he's trying to attack the African from an ethnic point of view because he's saying, oh, you worship the white man, but you're black, therefore you should hate the white man. And it's like, okay, if the white men you're talking about are the people from the Arabian Peninsula, yeah, the Africans should absolutely hate those guys because no one in the history of ever was more cruel and more dehumanizing for the longest time than the Arabs were to the black Africans. I mean, it was like, forget about it, you know. One of the reasons you don't see a lot of black Arabs in Arabic countries is because they castrated their slaves. Something that no one else did. And also another big thing with them was that they took a lot of slaves from the Balkans. So that's how your Turkic tribe, which come from north of Africa, now looks Greek because they basically bred the Asian look out of themselves by integrating with the Greeks, which, you know, is what it is, right? But yeah, the whole you worship a white man, that's kind of offensive, you know, kind of offensive to, like, okay, so do you. Your prophet was a white guy and you worship a demon. So, I mean, that should have been, I mean, the black guy, that should have been his response. He should have been like, look, I'm not going to argue with you over the ethnicity of Christ when you worship Baal, a demon from the Bible. And you know you do, deep down, right? So, you know, blah to your bullshit, right? That's kind of, I feel like, what should have been the proper response, you know? Not, yeah, you don't give any sort of you just don't try to, you don't allow them to argue that their religion is correct, because it's not. And if you are an atheist, then how do you tolerate a Muslim telling you that their religion is correct, and then defend the Muslims, even though you hate Christianity and to a lesser extent Judaism? And it goes even further, you know, it's like, and if you're a Christian and you accept the lie that Islam and Christianity are of the same tree, well, then you're probably damned. And that's not a good thing, you know? It's just not a good thing. Additionally, you are basically, I hate to say it, but you're basically saying that your religion is not true, because if Christianity is true, then Islam cannot be true, right? It can't. And if Islam is true, then Christianity cannot be true. So if you're a Christian and you entertain the idea that there are many ways to God or whatever, as you hear a lot of, these people saying, you're pretty much deluding yourself. You're damning yourself, kind of, in a way. You're saying things that are just simply not factual. And that's always been a thing that has interested me my whole life, is this idea that these people who claim to be of a religious belief, but then they get really bent out of shape if you if you're all like believing with them, like you're all like, I'm a Christian, blah, blah, blah. I believe this, blah, 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 right? And then these people will be all like, oh, you can't be that way. You got to be loving and understanding to everyone. And then, of course, when I read the Bible, that's just not exactly what I see in the Bible. I see a lot of, leave them to go their own way, stuff like that. Like, these people are not following the word. You have brought them the word. They have rejected the word. Therefore, you just go your own way and you let them deal with the circumstances and the results of their decisions. You don't hang out and tell them, hey, all these things that, Christ said were sinful and that you shouldn't do. Nah, never mind that. The modern earth has decided that those things are all good now. And we should do them. That's the problem with the LGBT thing. It's like, it's not bad enough that they're committing like blatant sinful acts. It's that they're reveling in it, and other people are reveling in it, and they're claiming to be part of God's church while they're reveling in this absolutely sinful behavior, And then, you've always got the tares amongst the wheat, the deceivers, whether human or demonic in origin. These are the kind of people that try and tell you that the ancient Greek word for homosexuality actually meant only with children. It's like, no, it's not what it meant. And imagine the arrogance of somebody born in today's world thinking they're going to translate the ancient things better than the people who actually wrote the things, and better than the tens of thousands of fathers who have come before us, Abbas, if you want to use the desert word. But some guy from a liberal arts school, he knows supposedly what all of the books mean. But, the thousands of people who study those books from the time they were written don't know what they mean. Does that make any sense to anybody? I mean, yeah, I'm sorry. It doesn't make sense to me. And you know what? Also, I'm not sorry. But it's like what in the hell are people thinking, you know? And the key word to that is hell. See, the prophets told us there would come a time when the whole world would go insane. And the insane people would look at the sane people and say, what's wrong with you? Why don't you believe what I believe? You must be insane. And I fully and firmly believe we have hit that point, you know, where madness reigns, and anyone who is still sane enough to see it and call it out is being attacked for calling it out, right? It's like, yeah, that's just what it is, you know. It's crazy, but then again, the prophets said it would be, and a time would come when good would be called evil and evil would be called good. You know, the saints warned us of this. Not that the Protestants know anything about, since they, you know, threw away the words of the saints when they decided that, you know, they could just save themselves and didn't need God or Jesus or the holy priesthood or anything like that to do it, you know. They just, I feel bad for them. A lot of them are really good people. And it's kind of sad that when the time comes and they stand in front of Jesus and they're going to say, Lord, Lord, and he's going to say, I don't know you. And, you know, that's a horrible thing to consider, you know. And I say that not as a person who is convinced I'll go to heaven. I'm not. As a matter of fact, I'm very doubtful about my ability to enter into the presence of God. Very doubtful. Because I have done some things that are, you know, not good. So, you know, I may end up going to hell right along with a lot of other people, but that doesn't change the point that it's like, you know, it's kind of like I said, when you watch TV shows, you never see Protestants being called in to exorcise demons. And there's a reason for that, even though they don't admit it. There is a reason for it. And it is because by breaking the faith with the Church of the Apostles, right? They no longer have the authority Christ gave the apostles to deal with the demonic entities that are all around us. They have no authority, because the authority to do exorcisms and to banish evil spirits can only come from one place, and that is, you know, Jesus Christ, and it is passed down through the apostles. That's just it. So if your church rejects the apostles, rejects the apostolic, you know, line and all of that, then yeah, they're just a home for demons, because there's nothing they can do about it. Now in the West, they always call in Catholic priests, and that's probably, you know, not a bad idea since even though they're not Orthodox, they are still, I like to think they're still part of the apostolic inheritance. So their priests can, in fact, deal with these things. At least that's what I believe. I hope I'm right. You rarely see Orthodox priests in exorcism movies because for the Orthodox, exorcisms aren't big deals. You know, you just kind of go in and say your prayers and run the demon out, and then you go out and get some pierogi. It's not that big of a deal. As a matter of fact, before you get baptized into the Orthodox Church, there's an exorcism. You know, it's not quite the same as our Roman Catholic brothers, which I'm not going to say, well, okay, it is better, but that doesn't mean that the Roman Catholics are on the wrong track. It just means that they're going about it the hard way because since they broke away from the mother church, their powers given unto the true priesthood by God through the apostles, they have like a step in front of them. You know what I mean? Whereas Orthodox priests, because of the nature of how close they are to God, do not have the step in front of them. Therefore, Orthodox priests can exorcise demons very easily. So this is a metal ship, but I have... I got to re-drill the hole. I have put 40K weapons all over it. The smaller ones, so that it actually, and something I didn't know, but I was looking at the ship, and it turns out that the turrets behind the first turrets are facing backwards. So I'm sure they can spin around and, angle out away from the ship, and the ship can probably do broadsides and all that, like in the Honor Harrington universe, where the ships are basically just giant tubes with guns mounted down the sides. Yeah, I'm sure these guys can do that too. And there are bays on these things, so, there could be missile bays and all kinds of stuff all over this guy. However, while I was working on him, look how many of the engine nacelles, or nacelles, or whatever you call it, came off. And that's because that's that old glue, that old glue that's been on there for 20 years. The second I started, literally the second I touched the thing, these things were falling off because, the glue was old. The guy got them from, I guess I can't say he abused them. He basically just put them in those big clear plastic boxes that have, where you can put like dividers in. Yeah, he basically just put them in those and left them out in the shed for, I don't know how long. Until I gave him a basic Marvel, whatever the little skirmish Marvel game is, core box. And then, he gave me all of his ships. Now, I've 3D printed multitudes of Star Frontier ships and compared them. And I will tell you that one, the scale is dead on. And two, the 3D printed ships in a lot of ways are just easier to deal with, you know? Metal is always kind of a pain in the ass. It's just the way it is, you know, when you deal with metal. There's some people out there, my friend Shadow, I would say, and they love metal miniatures, man. They're always talking about metal or nothing, right? Which might be a good statement if we're talking music, but for miniatures, I am more of a modernist. I'm like, give me that plastic, you know, give me that resin, you know, I'm okay with it. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't bother me. And the good thing about the polystyrene plastic miniatures are they're so easy to just work on, you know. Now, right here, I've got a whole box full of various, let me put it down in front of the camera, move this. I've got a whole box of various weapons for Battlefleet Gothic. And like I said, when I print up any Battlefleet Gothic miniatures, I always print up extra guns. Like this guy's got Lance batteries on the dorsal. Look, but I put the big ones on there, man, with the quad barrels and everything. It doesn't change anything in game. It just lets my opponent know this guy's, you know, he can easily see from 3 feet away. That dude has a shit ton of lances. So, yeah. So that is one thing, unfortunately, about Star Frontiers miniatures is that they can, you know, be brittle and whatever. But hey, you know, I am rather than replace the bases, the original bases on some of these Star Frontiers miniatures, I'm just gluing them to like other bases, you know. I mean, so that might make them stand taller or something, but I don't care as long as it makes them sturdier, less likely to slip around and carry on, right? So like this light cruiser got mounted on, you know, a cavalry base, right? And that's fine, you know. That's what I'm going to say about all of it. It's all good, you know. It's all good. Let's say I got Battleship or something and I just want to put a shit ton of missile launchers on it. I got missile launchers. I can do that, you know. I can just make a missile ship, which, you know, that's a lot more of a, yeah, that's Star Frontiers, but it's also Traveler 2300. And Traveler 2300, a lot of the ships are, especially the American ships, are just missile platforms. That's all they are. They just show up and start chucking nukes at enemy ships, you know. Like a perfect example would be 2300's Kennedy class cruiser. That thing is basically nothing but a giant missile platform. And it's fast. So it's a giant missile platform that can get from point A to point B really quick. Can it compete with a lot of the French ships? Maybe not. Because, you know, France is the world power in that game for you know, reasons. But, you know, that don't mean France ever wants to go to war with America, you know what I mean, in that game, because Well, the main reason I would say is because they're dealing with Kafer. Now, me, I am super stoked because, and I've said this multiple times, but that's just an example of how stoked I am. That War Games Atlantic is coming out with a 2300 box set at least. That's what they've said. And man, I am hoping so hard they come out with like Kafer. I mean, normal soldiers and stuff, I'm not sure if I actually need any of those because I have so many of the North Star Miniatures things, right? But actual, authentic, you know, Kafer that have been, you know, designed by the creator of the game, blah, blah, blah. I mean, that to me is just like so awesome, you know, just so awesome. And, you know, because I've always had a love, like an absolute love for 2300, Traveler 2300. I mean, to me, it is like the best thing that GDW ever put out, you know. And not necessarily the rules, but just the setting, you know, the whole near Earth, you know, the different aliens are like 2300 aliens are in every way better designed than aliens from any other version of Traveler. And I would die on that hill. You know, like the Hiver compared to the Pentapods, not even close. Pentas are so much more, one, believable, but I mean, they have a point, you know, and there's a secret that the players aren't allowed to know about, right? So as the DM, don't tell the players the secret of the Pentapods. But there is a big secret with them. Okay. Sometimes you got to cut the tabs off of the weapons to get them to set right. So let me see. See, this is not right because this missile launcher is really like angling in toward the ship. It's like, what are you doing? You know? Oop. So it looks like what I need to do is actually take the old knife and scrape down the sight where the missile launchers are going to go to make sure that is a nice flush. Yeah, see, there you go. A nice flush area so that the nice flush back of the missile launchers can grab onto it and be like, hey, this is home, right? Of course, this is a generic ship that I just found online for free. And I'm just attaching, you know, missile launchers from 40K to the side of it just to, you know, make it look a little bit more like, wow, this guy's got, you know, some firepower on it, you know? So, okay. Now let's try this side without getting sticky glue all over myself. All right. So come on now. This thing's wanting to wrestle with me. We ain't got time for that shit. Ain't nobody got time for that. Okay, so then let's tap it to make sure it's lined up. And look at it. Okay, and then I'm going to dab some more glue in here to hopefully, make that extra strong connection. And then we'll put her in front of you so you can see it's got the two little turrets on the top, but now it's got missile pods and turrets. So like a twin bay, with missiles and maybe a beam, las cannon or something. And that's pretty cool, right? That's pretty cool. So while I'm sitting here, I'm getting ready to end this very soon. Let's put some Nuln Oil on the silver engine of this particular ship so that we get the details we want. Yeah. See, that's good. And then I can always paint the turrets a silver color. Or just like the ship, just paint them white with some shade on them. I mean, nothing has changed. It had 3 or